Donald with Microcom Technologies, and I'd like to thank all of you for attending today's webinar with Zyxel. Today's host is Tri Nguyen, and he is their Market Development Manager, and he'll be presenting today. If anyone has any questions, of course, please feel free to submit them in the question box, and Tri will be able to answer them at the end of today's presentation. Tri, thank you so much for being with Microcom today. We greatly appreciate it. Looking forward to your presentation. So please go ahead and take it on over.
Thank you. Good morning, good afternoon, wherever you may be. Welcome to this webinar, and thanks for having me here as well. So, just as a quick introduction, we're going to be talking about a few things and a little bit of education. Hopefully, you can learn something about it as well. But if you haven't heard about who Zyxel is, we are Zyxel Networks. We've been in business since 1989. Over 100 million devices making connections worldwide, over 650 employees serving in 150 markets worldwide, and over a million businesses use Zyxel solutions today. And so today our topic at hand is about wired connectivity. And I know doesn't sound as exciting as Wi-Fi 7 and things like that, but it's a very important piece of the infrastructure that I think end users and customers and partners they may overlook because they're just looking for a way to just make a connection or to power up a device. But sometimes that's one of the most critical pieces that you have to consider when you're implementing either an existing network or a new network, especially with some of the new technologies that are out there. So this presentation today is just about educating a little bit about what those pieces are that you have to consider, as well as what Zyxel provides in those kinds of solutions and what to consider as well. A little bit of introduction as well, our switches and our products. It's part of our award-winning cloud networking platform. So a lot of the products that we do sell that are manageable typically are now managed in that Nebula cloud. So it's an award-winning platform, allows for you to do a single pane of glass, manage all sorts of devices, not only switches, but firewalls, access points. In fact, over 130 devices are now supported inside that Nebula cloud platform. So it's something to consider when you are doing large deployments, or maybe you're an MSP type customer that you're managing your multiple customers that might have multiple sites underneath. This gives you a one single pane of glass, single place that gives you everything you would need, not only from an IT perspective, but from a troubleshooting, from a auto provisioning perspective. Everything you need, is under this Nebula cloud platform. So on our switching to kind of give you a bit of how we name our products, so it helps you to also decide, well, which one of these, potentially 80 switches that Zyxel has, which ones will fit, or what do they mean? What are all these different model names? So RG is just like a ruggedized switch. So GS is a gigabit switch. So you can already see that we're very mindful on how we name our products. An MG is a multi-gig switch, so it has like 2.5 gigs, etc. An XGS type switch is a gigabit switch by nature. The main ports are gigabit with 10 gig uplinks. So the Roman numeral for X Roman numeral for 10 is X. So it's a gigabit switch with 10 gig uplinks. An XMG is a multi-gig switch with 10 gig uplinks. An XS switch is a 10 gig switch, so it has all 10 gig ports. Of course, there are also multi-gig that can do 2.5 and gigabit at the same time still. And then our newest switch that we just recently launched last year is our CX switch, which is a 100 gig capable switch. So it's 10 gig of mostly 10 gig slash 25 gig ports with 100 gig uplink ports. So, and then if it ends in an HP, then it means it has like a PoE or PoE plus or PoE plus plus. So it has that power injection. If it ends in an EP, it's usually like an economy power. It's usually like a lower power budget to be more cost effective, because maybe some applications don't need that level of PoE power budgets. If it ends in an FP, that's kind of like our full power or like max power mode switches that have pretty high standard power budgets. And then if it ends in just an F, they typically are fiber switches. So they have fiber ports as a main, and then they'll have typically copper uplinks, etc. So the fiber ports, of course, you have your SFP and SFP plus ports. The SFP are gigabit ports, and the SFP ports are the 10 gig capable fiber. Now, of course, there's some higher models as well that will do, you see here, a 25 gig, so the QSFP 28s, as well as the QSFP 28, the 100 gigs as well. So it can do 25 and 100 gigs. And that applies mostly to our CX switches that will be using the 100 gig uplinks. And you're like, wow, that's a lot. But in many cases, if you're doing like a building or an MDU and you need something beyond even 10 gig networks, then that's the product that you would use. With PoE, this is one of the biggest applications I think that people have to take into consideration because everything is getting powered by that. Whether it be Wi-Fi 7 access points, you have pan tilt zoom cameras, even like desktop machines can be powered by PoE in some cases. So the wiring also comes into play. So the capability of doing the longest distance. So Ethernet will typically do 100 meters max. But then at certain speeds, you have to have certain types of Cat 5, Cat 6, or Cat 6A in order to get the full maximum benefit. Like, for example, if you want to go 100 meters distance at 10 gig speeds, then you need a Cat 6A cable. So that's another piece of consideration, not only for the switch, but then also the wiring. And then the PoE power budgets, and you'll see these as well. The PoE outputs, 30 watts, 60 watt, and now the Ultra PoE 90 watts. So there's a lot of newer technologies that you have to consider again, based on the application and based on the devices that you're using. So we support all the latest PoE standards. So you can see here we just showing the 30 watt, 60 watt, but then there's the 90 watt as well. So that typically will be more like the laptop computers that will need a little bit more power than the 60 watt. But even then, at 60 watt, you can then power up, POS readers and stations, information kiosks by Ethernet. Of course, our main application for us at Zyxel is Wi-Fi 7 access points. But many people will also need it for pan tilt zoom cameras with the built-in heaters or built-in infrared, etc. So multiple camera type functions that use a lot more power, and now we can inject all of that through that Ethernet. So then you don't have to go find a power plug anymore. It makes it very convenient if those types of devices are capable of that. So Zyxel does do something different with our PoE, and typically it helps to enhance. So we call it smart PoE. It helps to then allow for you to power up more PoE devices than a lot of our competition because of how we do our smart or intelligent PoE. So take this example: if you're doing like a voice phone, it typically is classified as a 15.4 watt device, and but the actual consumption that maybe that device uses is, let's say, 9 watts. So on a power budget, if you're powering up 24 phones, the classification mode would be that you would need about 370 watts of power on that switch in order to power up those 24 phones. But in Zyxel's consumption mode, or in the intelligent PoE, those 24 phones would only consume 216 watts of the budget. So again, you can maximize more phones, more devices on a lower power budget on that consumption. Now, it makes more sense when you're dealing with a larger kind of classification. So let's say IP cameras or even Wi-Fi 7 access points. A lot of them are classified in the 30 watt or even higher classification. So if you're just going to power up 20 of those, it shouldn't say phone, but it should say cameras. If you're trying to power up 20 cameras at that 30 watt classification, you're going to need a 600 watt budget to power that. So you have to then spend extra money to get that versus the camera only consuming 16 watts. So those 20 phones would then only use 320 watts. So then you can maximize again the power budget that's available on like a Zyxel switch, be more cost effective, and then not have to have such a large power supply set aside just to power up that same number of devices. So it helps to save there on that. The switching is very, it has everything that you would typically need, especially on our web managed and our Nebula cloud managed models. Those ones are always they're able to do everything you typically need, like VLANs. People always ask, can it do bandwidth management? And the answer is yes. Everything you typically would think of. Now, there are more advanced switches that do like layer 3 routing, or those kinds of static routing, et cetera. Those are available in the higher end models. But then the bread and butter of most layer 2 plus switches will do everything you need with the auto detect, connected devices, intelligent PoE, like I mentioned, the CCTV applications for IP cameras. There's certain switches that will do some special things there. And then there's also machine learning, especially when you're using the cloud. It can detect when there's something wrong, broadcast storms, and then automatically block that or fix those connections. So it's really helpful in that regard. It helps to also visualize your network as well. Like when you're using a Zyxel switch, it can detect, especially in the nebula, the topology of what's connected to it. And the advantage of using nebula is, let's say you have an access point that's connected to it, and then you have devices that are connected to the access point. Now you have visibility of the whole network from wireless device to AP to which port on the switch. And if anything goes wrong, or if you need to reset something or troubleshoot, you can drill into that in that Nebula Cloud platform. It also has some diagnostic tools in the Nebula as well as, or you can schedule power cycles, or you can power individual ports on and off. So typical troubleshooting, if you are in anywhere in the IT space or even at home, what's the first thing you do when you're trying to fix something? Is you reboot the device. You either reboot your PC, reboot the router, right? That's kind of the first order of action. And so you can do this from a remote standpoint. An IT manager, if you're managing like an office space, you can then just use your app, go onto the web configurator, go to those ports. You can then do a power recycle on just that port. So you don't have to take down all of those devices, just the one that might be causing the problem. And it gives you all that visualization, and it also can detect third-party devices as well. So as long as they're using um, standard protocols that are used for detection on the network, we can see that and put that into our visual display. And it gives you then network resilience as well because of some of that AI that I mentioned. You can also do backup and restore of configurations. It will cloud backup information there. All the port user security, if you want to do like access control, all of the protection, including like loop guard and DHCP guard. People don't think about that as a network security, but I'm sure there's been some cases where somebody has brought a home router. They thought they just brought it to work just to give themselves some special Wi-Fi access or something, and plugged it into the corporate network, and now either caused a security hole because now they have an AP that's open, or they plugged it in the wrong way and they're delivering DHCP to the entire network, so nobody can get out to the internet because they're all pointed to the wrong, gateway IP. Things like that can be blocked and controlled. You can even do Mac freezes as well. So if you deployed a network in a, let's say, in a hospitality or in your IT network, and those APs are set in stone for right now, you can do a Mac freeze where it will learn those MAC addresses, store it in the switch, and if somebody unplugs that AP and tries to plug their own AP on it, the MAC address would not be recognized and then be blocked. So again, it's a added security functionality there. I'm sure in your offices, uh, there may be, or your customers' offices, there are probably Ethernet ports everywhere. And if you haven't locked it down, somebody could technically just plug in there and hopefully get, snoop around with a DHCP, get some information from that. So something to consider when you're deploying switches as well. You can automate these configurations through that cloud. You can clone switches, so it helps to make things happen quickly and conveniently. And we're really proud of our hardware design on our products. We have high temperature ranges typically. We also use smart fans that lower the noise. There's power filters that enhance the stability of the product. And most importantly, we use solid state capacitors on our products so that it lasts a lot longer and it's more stable, more robust, instead of some of the saltwater capacitors that are used in a lot of the other products, a lot of the competitor products. And those can be the first thing that fails, which causes failure in the product. So if you look at our mean time between failures of a lot of our products, it is very, very long. It's a lifetime of the numbers like in a lifetime. So it's like 75 to 100 plus years before a failure based on the components being used. So we break it down into multiple layers. We have the simplicity products that even go below what you see there, the 1915 series. And then the majority of our sales is kind of happens in the flexibility side. It's that mid tier. And then we have our project tier, which is in our like 2000 series and above. And on the kind of the most simple product that we have is our multi-gig capable injectors. So it can deliver 30 watts of power like on this one, but it also gives you 2.5 gig ports. So it's a 2.5 gig PoE injector with 30 watts. The one in the other corner over there is a 60 watt with 5 gig connectivity, and the one right above me is a 10 gig connection, but delivers up to 90 watts. So these are great if you don't want to have a full-on switch, but you need to power up something. It could be an IP camera, a wireless access point, and you don't have a power plug wherever that is, and you want to, conveniently deploy something up to 100 meters away with this kind of device, and it still can give you the Ethernet connectivity and the power injected down that Ethernet port. Our 1915 series, this is gigabit. So this is our first layer of web managed, cloud managed. We do have lower end models than this one, like our 8 port, 16 port unmanaged models or non-cloud manageable switches. We have those if you're looking for I just need some ports, right, with very minimal uh, configuration capabilities. But I do address this one as my kind of my entry level because it is the first a level that gives you that Nebula cloud platform and all that benefits of the auto provisioning, the cloning sites, those kinds of things, and seeing that in the cloud is with this model at least and above. So the 1915 series there, it can give up to 130 watts of PoE, and it can be managed in that cloud. Now, this is a specialty model. It's our GS 1350. It is cloud manageable, but it is made for CCTV, so IP camera networks specifically because it has an extended range. It can do 250 meters on Ethernet. Remember, I said before 100 meters was the limit of Ethernet. Well, this kind of breaks that limit by injecting more power and doing some things to make it so that it can go a little bit further. And that's super helpful if you have an IP camera down a long building and you don't have to then put an extender switch in between. You can just go 250 meters, which is 825 feet about of Ethernet cable versus just going around 300, uh, 300 feet per se. So it helps with that and also has auto recovery. So in case the camera stops sending video, which it should always be sending video if it's on, it will automatically reboot itself and reboot that port for you. So it's very helpful in that. And then our GS switches, our GS 1920 switches has both 24 and 48 port models there. I'm just going to skip through a few of these models because I just wanted to talk also about multi-gig really quick. Multi-gig is the infrastructure future because it offers then 2.5 gig, 5 gig, and 10 gig connectivity. So networks today, maybe your internet connection might not be as up to speed, but in order to take advantage of things like Wi-Fi 7 and upgrading to that, you want to get to that multi-gig because now your local network can take advantage of that 2.5 gig and 10 gig networks as well as because again, Wi-Fi 7 uses a lot of power in many cases. We have switches then that can offer up to 2,400 watts of PoE power and connect up to like 48 Wi-Fi 7 access points. And the new technology with the PoE++, it's all backwards compatible anyways. So this is great for healthcare, campuses, hospitality, senior living facilities, public access, surveillance. We've done some esports buildings as well now, as well as network AV. So quite a lot of different applications. So the XMG series. So if you have customers who are saying, hey, I need a multi-gig, I need 2.5 gig, 5 and 10 gig, you start here again with XMG 1915. That's our lowest end offering that is Nebula Cloud manageable. So again, it's very important to me that you do use Nebula. And Nebula is free. So you can use a paid version that gives you some added features, but then you can also use it in the free plan as well. And then our XS 1935, this is our full 10 gig, all ports 10 gig or 10 gig fiber with uplinks. And we have PoE versions up to 400 watts of PoE power on an 8 port. So quite hefty power budget for that, but it's all 10 gig. And the XMG 2230 is a very hot seller of ours right now because it does have that capability to go up to 2,400 watts if you use the DC power on that 48 port switch. And it also has the 10 gig uplinks with multi-gig ports on it. And then our kind of our stacking switch or our aggregation type switch, this is our 10 port 10 gig, all 10 gig ports with fiber options and copper options, kind of mix and match there with some dual personality ports, so it lets you choose between those. So this is typically a higher end, application there, or a large deployment in an MDU. And then lastly, this is our flagship, our CX 4800 that I mentioned, with the 25 gig and 100 gig capable aggregation. It comes with 48 ports of 10/25 gigs, and then 8 100 gig uplinks. The fans are hot swappable, the powers are hot swappable. It's cloud manageable in the Nebula cloud, and then also has layer 3 like stacking and routing type functions available as well. And that is kind of a quick splash on some of the gigabit, multi-gigabit switches, and then kind of the range from kind of the low end models all the way up to the high end. Again, we do have lower end multi-gig switches that are just some ports that are unmanageable, but that could be something as a good application for your kind of customers if that's what you're just needing to add some additional ports for the customer's local network. And with that, I thank you for your time, and I'll pass it back down to Julie.
Thank you so much, Tri. I appreciate that presentation. It was fantastic. And I do have some audience questions for you. If you're ready, we can get started on that.
All right, go ahead.
Okay, very good. First question here. How does Zyxel approach long-term product support and firmware updates?
So all of our products have free technical support, US based. So it's in the same building that I go to in Anaheim, California, and we support that. From a firmware perspective, there's free firmware updates for the life of that product as long as it's available. We typically have cycles depending on the models, especially the managed ones. There's typically a new firmware every 6 months, but then there are also patches in between potentially if there's any kind of security vulnerabilities or bugs, things that need to get fixed. So there are in kind of interim as well. So there could be as many as four firmwares a year, depending on the criticalness of those vulnerabilities or those bugs.
Excellent. Thank you so much for that. Next question here. Can you tell us what are the advantages of having a full Zyxel ecosystem versus a mixed vendor environment?
So in a mixed vendor environment, obviously, what we've always experienced, especially because we've been part of that ecosystem, whereas multiple vendors, is there's a lot of finger pointing, right? When you're having trouble, you're having to work with, trying to figure out there's a problem. Somebody is always saying it's the other person's fault. In fact, actually, Zyxel does a lot of, even though it's someone else's fault, we try to break something to make it work from our end, right? We've done that in the past to help our partners to fix some scenarios where they have no access, they have no ability to change whoever the other vendor is. But by using a single vendor like Zyxel, not only do you benefit from the Nebula ecosystem, you have a single pane of glass, you have all of your networking needs there. You can put your firewalls, you can put your switches, you can put your access points all under that ecosystem. You have one place to call, one place to call our support to help you through kind of the old space. I mean, we'll take the blame for the whole thing, right? Because we don't have anyone else to blame. And so we will work with that, work with partners to fixing those things. There are some technical advantages as well. So some feature sets that now we were able to implement, we can do things like connect and protect. We can do some things that will allow for you to detect certain security vulnerabilities or holes, and then communicate to the access point to isolate those devices away from the rest of the network or block them from potentially causing additional harm into the network or spreading whatever viruses they may have. So that helps to mitigate some of that as well.
Excellent. Thank you so much for that, Tri. Next question here. What makes Zyxel's smart antenna technology different from our competitors or your competitors?
Yeah. So there's only one other competitor that has a patented technology, and this is a separate patented technology on the smart antenna technology. So what it does is it allows for you to communicate to a client device in a beam type where we will focus the signal strength this way as well as focus the receive into that direction of that client. But the difference between ours is and the competitors is that ours will allow for you to do that without the client device having that same technology. Versus our competitors, both sides need to have kind of the megaphone in order to benefit from each other, whereas ours is we're doing all of the work. So it helps to facilitate things that don't support that kind of technology. So you might have a scanner device, or you have a pad device that you're using on the wireless that doesn't have any special technology, but we can help to improve that. And while improving that communication, it's also mitigating the noise that the access point is also hearing. So it reduces the interference that's being caused by being able to focus in onto each one of those devices. And it does that, all the time, no matter how many different clients that are there. It's talking to everybody in that way. Now, combine that with Wi-Fi 7, and this is one of the main reasons why customers, I would say, will benefit from it. Maybe not necessarily the speed of Wi-Fi 7, because maybe their internet connection is only a 500 meg connection, so they can't fully benefit. But Wi-Fi 7's MLO, which is the multi-link operation function, allows for you to communicate on 2.4, 5, and 6, potentially all at the same time if your client device supports it. So that means that anywhere there's the least noise, I can get a packet of data and communicate between, all these things and put it all together. It helps to improve my quality of Wi-Fi. Now combine that MLO with smart antenna, and now you have kind of an exponential, a quality of service there with Wi-Fi 7.
Excellent. Thank you so much for that. Try next question here for you. How does Zyxel see AI changing network troubleshooting within the next few years?
So we already have started implementing a lot of these AI functions right now, kind of like I said, self-help. If you've never used like Zyxel or Nebula before, we have an AI, basically an assistant that you can ask it questions like, how do I configure the Wi-Fi? And it will take you to and show you exactly where you need to go to configure some of those things. So you don't have to necessarily know and learn right day one where these menu systems are until you get comfortable with it. Of course, then you learn, and then you're able to do it without the assistant. Now, there's also moves of AI is from a network monitoring standpoint that it will take action. So implementing things into our security platform that will help to discover, find potential issues, and then take action on it. So not only now, right now, the industry is more of like a detect and just like notify, a detect and alarm, and to say, hey, something's going on, and somebody else has to look at it. But now with AI being able to make some of these decisions, potentially could say, hey, what is the level of risk or the vulnerability or what's happening on the network? What is that risk level? And be able to take appropriate action. Maybe it's not mission critical, so it just alerts and alarms. But then there's something critical, it might take a block action or might do something like that. So we can see that constantly evolving to the point where maybe I wouldn't say like IT administrators' jobs would be gone, but it would be more like evolve, right? Because you're helping to kind of digest and help the AI make the right decisions and maybe correct it if they're like, well, I don't want you to block that type of application, so modify that so then they won't in the future, right? So things like that.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Last question here for you. Can you tell us which new Zyxel Wi-Fi 7 access point has been the most popular so far?
It's been it's been kind of a mix. That's like a range. Depends on the customer. I know on our online kind of channels, it's all about price. So a lot of our low end models, or the ones that are like very closely matched on a low price point to some of the competitors that are out there that don't have stock, and you probably know exactly who I'm talking about. Those are probably the ones that are, from a volume perspective, most popular, right? But I think the ones from an IT management standpoint and from a like an installer for an MSP, they typically are in that mid tier because it's kind of a balance between feature sets and price point. We do have customers who use the full smart antenna, the highest end, because they say, "Hey, I'm just going to standardize on the best technology. Then I don't have to worry about it because what's a few more dollars basically to use your best, and so I'm just going to pass that on as part of my MSP, high quality MSP package, anyways. So I'm going to use that." But that mid-tier, some of the models like our WBE like series, those are probably your best bet, because again, it's a balance between the price point and the feature set. If you go too low end, you're going to be missing some of the features like maybe guest networks or some of the authentication pieces that you might want. But again, if it's just, hey, I'm just deploying in an office, they just need a Wi-Fi, they need a couple SSIDs, they have a guest SSID, very basic, very simple, they're not doing any crazy authentication things like that, then that might be perfectly fine for your application. But that WEE series is probably the most popular for our IT managers and our MSP customers and reseller partners. And then the low end like NWA series for Wi-Fi 7 usually has a BE at the end, but it starts with NWA. Those ones are most volume popular. So a lot of quantity is that sold. And then
Tri,
right now
thank you.
too, I
Oh,
know they mentioned smart antenna, so I just wanted to inject
yes,
too.
of course.
We've hit a lot of new applications or new projects for rodeos, for gaming facilities, for what do you call it? Cold storage facilities, things like that, that are using the Wi-Fi 7 with smart antenna. Because again, warehouses and stuff, they have so much interference and so much noise, and to overcome that, they're using MLO with smart antenna technologies to help facilitate those applications.
Excellent, Tri. Thank you so much for answering all of those questions for us today and giving us all that information. And thank you to everyone for attending today's webinar. And if anyone has any further questions, of course, please feel free to contact your sales rep or email us at sales@microcomtech.com. And if you wish to view any of the products mentioned or shown today, please remember that this webinar presentation has been recorded and will be uploaded to our Microcom YouTube channel so we can all view it again. Tri, I'm looking forward to reaching out to you and doing this again, perhaps in a couple of months, and see what else is going on with you guys. We greatly appreciate it. And everybody, have a fantastic day.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Tri. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.